Okay. So, now the next two verses are very important because they put the whole thought process that we have through Vedanta in perspective. Okay. So the verses say, Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi Shariram Ratham Evatu Buddhim tu Sarathim Vidhi Manaf Pragraham Evacha. Okay. So what is, why you are sitting there? I was like, why Neeru is down there? Okay. So one thing is extremely important to understand, that when Vedanta starts with this inquiry about who you are, so what you have to do is to really make you understand who you are not first. Only then it can make you understand who you really are. Okay? So there is this whole process of negation, and in that process of negation, the first thing that gets negated as not I is what? The body. Because you are not confused with reference to other objects in the world that they are not I. But where is the confusion? It starts with this body. So therefore, this is where the negation process starts, right? So you say, I'm not the body, where the second huge identification we have is with mind. So it also says you're not the mind. Now, what is the kind of a flip side of not understanding this accurately? See, this may be a fact that you are not the body and you are not the mind, but if you don't put the whole thing in perspective, what you will think? Or you may... Exactly, absolutely.
I can just live my way. I know that I am everything. I'm free. I'm free of my things. So live anyway.
Exactly. Or you can say, oh, now I can be indifferent to this body. That was this, right? And indifferent to the mind, because as it is, as Rashna is saying, oh, I'm just this awareness and I'm not this mind. Mind is transient. So, you tend to fall from, having your identity with the body and mind to being totally, exactly. The other extreme of being indifferent to body and mind, or almost disowning it, right? And that is another trap.
Just one question I want to ask, these sannyasins and all that, I can't understand how they would be in the whole thing of it. Because they are not engaging with action, they're not really doing that proactive, yet they have to deal with their mind, I guess, I don't know.
Oh, they absolutely, everybody does.
They have to deal with their mind.
Yes, they have to.
Then they're not doing any action to give, to whatever I want to develop there. So I don't understand the sannyasi.
Okay, so sannyasi is I'll talk about this now. No, I'll talk about it now because it's interesting what she is saying. It's interesting. Okay. So now, what Rashna is saying is that, what is exactly your question? Your question or your concern is, okay. So you feel that you have to still, continue to live in life, right, with this knowledge, and the concern is that why these sannyasis, they are just kind of, give up different roles and then just become, just almost kind of removed from the society. Okay, so that's a very interesting question.
And I think what you're saying is from their body also. They don't give importance to themselves. Is that what you're saying?
I guess it would be an overall thing.
Yeah, like you're saying.
I feel a sense.
Yeah, so that's why you'll see, like the cliche, like long beard, some huge thing. So, it's totally interesting, and how true this cliche is. That I had gone to a restaurant with my friend, and somebody asked, so who am I? So she said, yeah, she's my Vedanta teacher. So she was like, she said, oh my God, that doesn't look like a Vedanta teacher. So like, what Vedanta teacher is supposed to look like, right? So that's it's like, with some big tilak and some big, like
you don't look like Radha.
Exactly. Walk around with this trishul and, like some dramatic look, or, And it's quite interesting, and people very often ask me, so do you watch movies? So then I said, yeah, I do. It's not like watching movie is against spirituality. See, they have all these, so you go to parties, and I said, yeah, why not? I mean,
it's very stereotypical.
Exactly, right? So yeah, absolutely, and I enjoy food, and then the biggest thing is that I shouldn't be talking in front of so even like yeah, a glass of wine, what's wrong? It's like exactly right. You don't get drunk, it's fine, so that means there is this whole cliche about this spiritual person and giving up everything and removing oneself from the world. That is a very common kind of a thing. So we need to look into it. We need to understand what is sannyasa. That's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah, it is confusing, right? Because that seems like the only spiritual person is this profile, and in the minute, in fact, some people love the fact that you are like a normal person. But there are a lot of others who will say, now what will she know, right? Unless you have that, unless you fit into that profile or that exactly, they'll not take you seriously.
What you explained to us, engaging in action is very important. But with them, I'm not sure. Are they engaging in action?
So that's lovely.
My question
so now,
is not the stereotypical. I think your question is what are they doing?
What are they doing?
Their understanding
Exactly.
of another
Absolutely. Right? So that is lovely.
Yeah.
So now we will look into the whole tradition of Vedanta, the whole tradition of sannyasa. Okay. Now, what is, if I ask you, what is the purpose of life? Okay. What is the purpose of life?
To be as happy as possible.
Tiring.
It's tiring. I mean, even though we try to have fun and we try to have a good time and we try to, but it is exactly having fun itself is so tiring, because imagine you are planning a holiday, how much you have to do it, right? I mean, even just pack your bag, and even if you have all the stuff and all that, I mean, just kind of, getting yourself out and doing things, and everything is, and then also sitting in the plane, your servant cannot sit in the plane for you, and these long journeys of 12 hours, right? So you have to do everything is tiring. It's true, it is a lot of effort and it's tiring, right? So therefore, the whole purpose of life cannot generally people define by only artha and kama, right? More securities, more pleasures, and this is how our life is defined, and that becomes tiring, as Radhika says. So now, according to the Vedic vision, that is not the end. It's an important means. There's nothing wrong in doing it, right? But you can't define your life by that. So that means that there is something more to life than only that. So we are not saying it's not important. We are saying that is okay, but you can't just take that as the final goal of your life. Okay? So then what becomes the final goal of life?
To understand the real life.
Absolutely. That becomes the final goal of life, right? Because actually what you're looking for through this ceaseless pursuit of artha and kama is your own fulfillment. That's really your interest, right? So moksha is your interest. Moksha is what? Freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from inadequacy. It's a very fundamental freedom. We are not just talking about freedom from being insecure, freedom from being unhappy, freedom from the lack, freedom from void. That's what you're really interested in. Okay? Now, the more and more pursuit of artha and kama, is it really going to give you this freedom? No. Because generally what happens is, it does give you certain sense. It's not that it doesn't give anything.
It's transient.
Intransient. It does give pleasure. It does give, otherwise a human being is too smart. They will not pursue it. Why are they hooked on? Because it does give. But what is the problem? It is transient. And what do you want it to be? Permanent. What is essentially transient, if you want permanency, not possible. You are hooked for rest of your life or lifetimes. Okay? So therefore, now, so that means that where I am searching, there is no answer for that lasting happiness, freedom from that inadequacy, freedom from smallness, freedom from limitation, lack, void, whatever you call it. Okay, then you have to understand that then either I have to just say that okay, now there is no solution, or I have to say the solution is not where I am looking, there is some other solution. So that's when you say, now in this there is no solution, maybe the possibility is what? I'm seeing myself as an incomplete person and I'm engaging in the world to what? Feel complete. That is, that way it goes on. Okay? Maybe the conclusion that I have about myself itself is wrong. So this is where, as Rashna is saying, you start looking where? Within. Like your own nature. Are my conclusions about who I am, are they accurate or not? So that makes you a person who is seeking freedom, but not through objects, but through what? Knowledge. Knowledge of oneself and understanding one's. In that knowledge of oneself, there are three components to that. Who are you? What is your relationship with the universe? And what is your relationship with the cause of the universe? Three questions. Not just floating, who am I, who am I, who am I? Three questions. Okay? So Vedanta is the whole discipline which begins to start answering those questions. Okay? So therefore, now, so that means that a human, according to the Vedic vision, human birth is meant for moksha. Because you are given the mind which can inquire and you can figure it out. Okay? So that means, but most of the people, they seek freedom through artha and kama, and whole life goes in that, and lifetimes go in that.
Also, they may reach up to dharma.
Yeah, they may reach up to dharma. Exactly. A lot of people reach dharma. Exactly. That's lovely. A lot of people, artha, kama, either you can do it adharmically or you can do it dharmically. Right? Because its pursuit remains artha and kama, but you are right. It's absolutely. Dharma.
People who immerse themselves in religion,
Yes.
or they think they are very ethical, so that is it.
Yes.
Enough.
So there are some mature people who go up to dharma, as Neeru is very rightly saying. Okay? But even dharma doesn't give a solution. Can it solve the problem of that basic void? No. You can be extremely ethical person, very considerate. You still, and that's why we had this two girls in this Alibag retreat, right? Extremely aware and very intelligent and very committed and working for a cause, and nice jobs they had and everything. But still, with reference to themselves, there is a void. So many. Very noble people, but still a void.
So they were voicing that.
So they are voicing that.
They're voicing it.
You're voicing it. That's why they
That's
come.
why they came.
That's why you come, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, and at a young age, it's not like they are very old or anything. They are youngsters. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah. So therefore, that even dharma doesn't solve that problem, as Neeru says, right? So that means I need to really relook at myself in a totally different light. But everybody is looking upon oneself in the same way as I am. So who can give me a different light? Who can make me see myself in a different light? So that's why you need some guru, who can make you see yourself in a different light, and by just presenting what is, and make you just give up certain notions that you have in a very kind of an effective manner. Okay, so therefore now moksha becomes a pursuit, and for that moksha, what do I need to do? Neither my artha is going to help, nor my kama is going to help. Even my dharma is not going to help. I need to know the reality about myself. Okay. Now, if I need to know reality about myself, I need to give it some time. Okay. Because not only this life, millions of lifetimes I have lived with what? A certain identity, which is what? As good as this body and mind. Okay, so that means moksha becomes a pursuit. It's not like one teacher comes and tells you, you are this Satchid Ananda Atma, and then you get it and you understand it. Right? The teacher may be very skilled and you are interested, but doesn't mean that one time it's told and then what? It's all over. So that's why it becomes a pursuit. It becomes a pursuit because what? You need to listen to it again and again and again.
Make that effort.
And make that effort to break away from your past way of looking at the world, which includes what? Your conclusion about yourself, it includes your conclusion about the nature of the world, your position in it, the cause of the universe, your relationship with it, everything it includes. So you need to slowly what? Start shedding that. And initially when you listen to Vedanta, what are you trying to do? You already have an image of everything. So when you take the inputs from Vedanta, what will you do? Either it totally bounces off because it doesn't at all fit into what you think everything is. So that's why it seems all very strange and like, what she was saying is like this, this person. Completely what?
Psychedelic.
Yeah, psychedelic, exactly. Because it almost like somebody is making you hallucinate.
Yeah, hallucinate. It is like that. Yeah.
Because it's so much out of our normal paradigm, so it makes us think like that. Okay. Now, what if it is, then why do we still continue to listen to it?
Somewhere there is subconsciously you do accept the truth of the thing.
Okay. Somewhere you begin to see maybe some logic or something.
Resonates.
Yes, somewhere it resonates. You say, okay, now even though it sounds totally crazy, right? If it really sounds crazy, you should not come second time.
But it resonates at a knowing level, which is different to an acting. It's not. It's a knowing rather than an intellectual exercise. I don't know how to put it. It's not an intellectual exercise. You know it. I think maybe
at a deeper level now.
But
You
it's
know it.
both, because at the deeper level you resonate because you know it touches that.
It touches at very core.
Yeah. And at a intellectual level, it's so logical and
True.
methodical that
Yes.
you cannot answer back and say what you're saying is rubbish.
But at first,
Because
it's
the way
so
you
out of
break
the
it
box
down-
that you begin to think but it still resonates inside, even though you think it's what is she talking
Yeah,
it's
you're right.
too, I mean, it's way up.
Yeah, I think it has to. But
And then from there you
Then
start,
you-
then start
pulling
assimilating.
you.
I think that's what happened with me.
Same thing happened.
Yeah,
It was somewhere it,
yeah.
you know.
You know.
You don't know how to
That is
you don't know how to
very
explain
explain
it.
it. You know.
But to
Yeah.
intellectualize it, to think about it,
That is another thing.
effort and
Ethics.
And then we absorb it even to our preconceived notions also. That is another.
So now,
Yeah.
wonderful. So
Yeah.
now, initially what happens is you already have certain understanding of things, right? Existing understanding. So you take Vedanta and you try to fit it into your existing framework. But your existing framework itself is highly faulty.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you take inputs and you try to put it in that faulty framework. What will happen? You will not fit it. And you won't understand it fully. You can't understand it fully. So what do you need to really do? Slowly give up that existing framework and what recreate what? A totally new framework, which is totally coherent. It is all based on all the series of arguments and logics and analysis which is provided by Vedanta, where you demolish that other thing and you recreate. Now that whole process of demolishing, and imagine one little building, how long does it take to demolish the whole thing. I mean, just one floor building, I saw somewhere somebody, it took months to just like.
And everybody do at a different level.
Absolutely.
Everybody has a different
Right.
Heavy hammer in the hand.
Absolutely.
Somebody has a heavier hammer, somebody has a lighter hammer.
Absolutely. Then what happens is, yeah,
Somebody is a bulldozer, yeah?
Yeah.
Somebody is a bulldozer.
yeah, and then after having done that, what you need to prepare the foundations.
But that's where yoga comes in, you said.
So that's where all these disciplines, everything that I was talking about, karma yoga, sattva, rajas, tamas, all these different raga, dvesha framework, all the how does it, raga, dvesha framework is these desires which are identifying whether they are binding or not binding, and delicately shifting from binding to non-binding desires. So all that. And how those 20 values which are mentioned in 13th chapter, these are all what? Foundations. You need to recreate the foundations, how you live in this world. Totally different from the existing patterns and existing beliefs. So that takes time, right? Once the foundations are solid, then you can begin to understand what Vedanta is saying. So you have to recreate that vision of who you are, what is the nature of the world, what is your relationship with it, what is Ishvara, all that you need to because unless, absolutely. So the emotional baggage is what? The foundation. Because you have to have that foundation. Because if your emotions are all haywire, what will happen is, Vedanta says you are full and you feel as an emotional being incomplete. You feel a lack. Then what will you say? You will say that intellectually I understand it, but I don't feel it. But actually what is wrong? The foundation itself is not taken care of. That feeling of the smallness and all that you need to give it some thought. Or any resentment that we are carrying, or any guilt that we are carrying, hurt that we are carrying, we need to take care of it. Just by understanding, you try to build this whole picture without a foundation, it's not possible.
It's a house of cards.
Exactly. It will become house of cards, it will collapse. Then it is just kind of a feel good, some kind of a trip. Oh, I'm the whole and I'm the. It doesn't work, doesn't last. So that's why this foundation is so important, and all the verses about changing and reorienting yourself and re-looking at life and understanding what you have a choice over, what you don't have a choice over, intervening intelligently, dealing with your emotions, cultivating values. All this is foundation. Then once you have those foundations, then what you can recreate that whole new vision for yourself. And so that vision will then require for you to really look at what Vedanta is saying and understand each part accurately and connect that part to the other part accurately. Otherwise, what happens if I give one class and you really try to understand that given thing, you may understand, but then you may forget that. So when I'm talking about something else, you don't know what that exactly, what that is and how that connects to this. That's why our vision always remains partial. Because there is a one full coherent vision. And what happens is we understand parts, but we don't totally put it together and see all the interlinkages, all the interconnections, and how it each feeds into the other to make one coherent vision. Okay, so that takes a lot of time. So that means each part is an important part. You can't ignore it, and you really need to understand it properly, and you also need to understand its connection with the other thing. Okay. Now imagine for the whole process to happen where the foundations are all sound and the previous thing is demolished, the new vision is totally built and totally understood accurately. How long will it take? Is it just something which is like one day Is it 2 days? No, it takes time. It does take time. It's too fundamental. It can take lifetimes. Okay, so that's why one has to be patient with this whole inquiry.
Where are the
So
sannyasis fitting
now,
into this?
sorry.
So what is the vision of the sannyasi in this? That
So
we are-
now, so that means now, wonderful. Okay, where does this whole thing of sannyasi?
Yeah.
So now, imagine in this lifetime, you have started kind of looking into it, and you have so many roles and responsibilities and everything. You have to go to work, you have kids, you have grandchildren. How much of time can you devote to this whole thing, which is an intricate process?
Then the responsibilities are there with the children and all, right?
So now, so 1 minute, right? So that means that, so there will never be a time that you don't have responsibilities. So it's just a matter of priority.
That's what they are doing.
That's what they are doing.
So they are giving it
So
a
they
priority to
are,
search for moksha, the pursuit of moksha, and cutting out whatever is not necessary and concentrating on that.
absolutely,
I
right?
see.
So that means that possibility of that lifestyle is given within Vedic culture. Is given.
Yes, which is what
That's
you are
why.
doing. What is
Right?
what you are doing.
So I'm not really a
No, I'm not
sannyasi.
saying- your
Yeah, but
pursuit-
yeah,
But your
yeah.
pursuit is
Pursuit
within the
is
country,
exactly.
not going outside and looking for it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. What
What I was saying was a sannyasi is because,
How they
my
go out.
understanding, because they leave all the responsibilities,
So it's
which
outer
are
work.
taking away time
Got it.
from their pursuit of moksha, so they choose to give it up and
give it up
pursue
and
that.
do it.
Whereas she's saying it is possible living here to do it also. More difficult.
Wonderful.
Maybe
Both
more.
are possibilities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both are possibilities. And both possibilities are given in Bhagavad Gita. It says, right, that exactly what can be accomplished by sannyasa can also be accomplished by a person who is living in the world. It is unbelievable.
Like some
That's
what
because
old
I always
wise
imagine
man
that you have to, how active you have to use your actions, and I'm always thinking in terms of that.
So,
That's why I was
so
wondering
now,
how they fit in.
okay, now wonderful. Now let me go
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
further in this whole analysis, right? So now you understand
Now I understood
Yes.
the
why. So now, I have witnessed, like from my class, about 90% of the students who studied with me, they are now sannyasis. 90%, or even little more than 90%.
So they've given up and
So
then
they've
the
given,
ashrams or whatever
So
and
yeah,
pursuing
so
it.
that means what happens? Well, who is a sannyasi, right? So there is a Vedic ritual where you actually declare that now in this world you go in front of Ganga or wherever, right? Where I have seen is in Rishikesh. And that morning, after a whole night of Gayatri Mantra, chanting Gayatri Mantra, asking for clarity and all, you go and declare to the sun and the moon and the whole universe that from now on, the only thing that you need in this life is what? This knowledge. And you are, through your own volition, going to give
now
up.
pursue
Exactly. Only to the exclusion of everything else.
So there is celibacy
So there is
involved in that.
there is.
Who's a brahmachari?
So brahmachari is the first stage. Here you are a sannyasi.
So sannyasi is
So
also self-
sannyasi, exactly, because there are no relationships. There are everything else that everybody else does. The person has somehow understood that there is no real answer in that. So I want to pursue this self-knowledge, and for that creating a foundation, then building that new vision, it takes time. So I'm going to spend time focused on that.
So 90% went of your class.
So that means
90.
90% of my
You
classes.
keep in touch with any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I used to keep meeting them.
They're on the road to that.
Yeah, so once I was with a friend of mine, and then some Swami is coming, and I'm like, hi, and then he's in my class, so we are like really friendly. So he said, is this your friend? I said, yeah, he's my friend, we were studying together. So,
But it means even if they have families, wives, husbands, children, so we give it all up.
okay, so now that possibility is given, right? Generally, in fact, in this Vedic vision of life, there are different stages of your life. Okay, there is one thing which is what you say, but what Radhika is saying is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is the beginning of life when you are actually learning things and you're, equipping yourself to live life. The second stage is grahastha. Grahastha is what you get married, then you have children, then you raise children, and then what happens is there is vanaprastha. Vanaprastha means after having done all these different things, when the kids grow up, you don't still try to control the kids. There is this Mahabharata, that battlefield, there is this nice scene where Dhritarashtra and Kunti, they say, we have seen a lot in life now after the war. Now we have to retire to the forest. But retire to the forest, not just renouncing what? Reflecting on how we have lived our life. It requires some time. So this is the problem, that we just continue within Grahastha ashram only. We don't graduate to that next stage of Vanaprastha. That you need to give your life a certain thought. What have you done? What did you, what you could have done differently? Or a reflection on yourself, the most important thing. When you have actually performed all the duties, you can spend that time on your own self. Okay? Now, as a result of that reflection, if you come to the conclusion that, hey, this self-knowledge, without this whole life, I can live lives after lives after lives, I get nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do need to spend time on some self-inquiry also. So that is what you are given, that time to think about yourself, that is sannyasa. So that means now your question is that premature, we are talking about one stage after having done all of that. But there are some exceptions who are like, people like me, people who studied with me. They are young kids, like 22, 25, they came and they studied with my teacher. They had no responsibilities. They didn't have kids, they didn't have wives. So right from brahmachari, they go straight to sannyasa. They skip the grahastha and vanaprastha. It's allowed. That's your choice. It's allowed. Because moksha is such an important thing that you are allowed to skip that step.
But if you are a brahmachari, you can go to grahastha.
Exactly.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So in fact, you can go into grahastha and still pursue this.
Of course.
And work on the foundation, work on the vision, work on demolishing the previous way. You can still do it. Both possibilities are given. Now, so imagine, so that is the idea of sannyasa. So they say, from today on, my pursuit is going to be this self-knowledge. For that, there are two things that I need to do. One is I need to learn, right? And the second thing is what? I need to share. Sannyasis are supposed to be not just people share. That's a huge role.
Then I get the
Yeah, because imagine if you're totally busy with your work and your kids and your job and your grandchildren. Where is the time that you're going to first have time to learn and secondly to share? A society needs people who impart this knowledge, who make themselves available for imparting this knowledge. It's a huge service, because who will give normal people certain perspective if there is nobody available?
Sorry, my understanding was like a hermit type of person who just goes into themselves and just sits.
Yeah,
as a sannyasi.
but sannyasi, this is the real idea. The real idea is that the pursuit of knowledge to the exclusion of everything else. But the pursuit of knowledge includes learning and giving back.
So they are not doing the correct thing then, by sitting there.
So they are just exactly sitting and so this is not what is enjoined by Shastra. And sometimes they don't even know something called self-knowledge exists. They just go and sit in meditation and some kind of a stillness or some kind of that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And as a result of these kind of things, you may develop some power, and when you develop those powers, you start thinking that either, or you can even use it nicely and you can misuse it, but it all goes on a tangent. But the real idea of sannyasa is this: moksha requires self-knowledge, self-knowledge requires a lot of effort, and this person decides to devote this life to that, to the exclusion of minimizing all the other roles. And also makes oneself available to others, right? Because to sort out their others' lives. Yeah.
So without taking sannyasa, you can still be a sannyasi.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is actually,
Yes.
if you look at it, is what Nima's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can do it her way.
She's dropped all other roles.
Yeah.
And she's only into imparting and sharing and learning. And I mean, I'm sure your learning
Yeah.
also goes on side by side.
Yeah, absolutely. So much learning goes, and then so much sharing also goes, right? So then at some
Devoted
point,
your life to this.
Exactly.
Taking sannyasa.
absolutely, you can have.
She says in Bhagavad Gita, it says you can do both.
You can do both.
But that's
So that's-
it's so amazing, the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, look at the way it's so practical. I say you can do this or you can do this.
And both will lead you to the same. And
Yeah.
plus, in Bhagavad Gita, it adds one more nuance. It says that imagine that you leave everything, okay, prematurely. What will happen?
You still carry everything inside.
You still carry everything inside. So that means, imagine that you said, oh, you have this whole big urge for knowledge, right? And then you take sannyasa. Then when by the time you're 35, one student comes who's an attractive girl and starts serving you, and you're a male,
That's what happens.
That's what happens.
Swami, a lot of them have that problem.
right? And then, so this is why he says, Sanyasastu Mahabaho Dukkham Aptum Ayogatat. He says, if you prematurely take sannyasa, thinking that it's better and it's a fast track to moksha, and if you have not really worked through the foundations, it will actually take you on a tangent.
Even the
So-
Rishi Munis, the same thing happened with Apsaras.
Yeah.
The famous story.
Yeah. So therefore, he says safe way is to what? Continue to, right? Live in this grahastha ashram. In fact, when you live in this grahastha ashram, what lots of experiences will come, and then you have to work through what are your responses. Right? You have to break free from your past behaviors, and you need to what? Act according to your new understanding. It gives you an opportunity to what? Test how strong is your foundation. Where are you at emotional level? Where are you in terms of your understanding of ethics? Where are you in terms of actually making an effort towards becoming more sattvic, cultivating right values? It will give you challenges, exactly. How you handle challenges. Okay, so therefore he says, don't be in a hurry to take sannyasa thinking that it will be faster.
Yeah.
Because life, living and role playing gives you an opportunity to first see, oh my God, where am I going on a tangent? And when you recognize you're going on a tangent, what? You correct it and you bring back your whole behavior in line with the vision and the values which are given by Gita. So therefore, both lifestyles are possible. In one lifestyle, what? The pursuit of knowledge to the exclusion of every other role, and in the other lifestyle, what? Pursuit of knowledge, continuing to play the roles. You can't categorically say one is better than the other, because in the other one,
harder is to leave the action. I feel that.
Yeah.
The action
You live in
alone.
this world and you in the grahastha ashram.
Yeah. And then to master it all. And this is why when Arjuna wanted to run away, Lord Krishna, what did he say? You have to stand right here and you have to do what you have to do. Running away, Arjuna said, if self-knowledge is what I want, and sannyasa can get me there faster in his understanding, why should I go and perform this? And not only just this work, it was not an ordinary action he was asked to do. He was asked to fight a war against his own loved ones, which was going to create so much destruction. right? So, but Lord Krishna said, you have to do what you have to do. Running away from responsibility is not an answer.
Is sannyasins called running away?
So no, because at some point in your life, it will automatically adopt. Exactly. So you just want to share. So then, if you, it's like seed. You can't hurry up.
Yeah.
Right, and you can't say now it has to grow into a tree, but when it naturally grows into a tree, it's fine.
So your intention of taking it is very important.
Exactly. Your intention of, I want to know this knowledge, and I want to do what I can to prepare myself for this knowledge is very important. Then lifestyle just becomes, even if you then decide to continue to live in life, but if you've managed all your foundations properly, then you are free.
But even vice versa, Nima, a sannyasi who's taken sannyas may falter during their life sometime, right? Into artha and kama.
Yeah, even
If if the intention is strong and their purpose is strong, they can still process it and move.
Wonderful. Okay, what Niru is saying is yes, yes.
Vice versa.
Yeah, see, you can do it, but what is the slight difference here is you have taken out of your own volition. Nobody is telling you. You have taken a vow of, I don't want to have play other roles, and you somehow begin to get into it. But that's true that you at any given time, they do falter. Absolutely, absolutely.
So the true sannyasi would be who will falter.
And then he will
pick up, move on, process that situation just like a grastan does, and move on, and not
be stuck. Wonderful. Yes. So that's why you're right, absolutely. But if you start using that position to say, now I'm over and above everything, then that is a problem, right? So this is something which is and so you can't categorically say that sannyasis are useless. You can't say that, because they do have a purpose, right? Nor you can say that the grahastha is always entangled. No.
Each has a place and each has a role.
Absolutely.
And it's possible to achieve
more within
any role, in any situation that you are in, it's possible to achieve.
Excellent.
Or to walk towards self-knowledge.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Vandana.
Yeah. It's practical.
It's practical. Yes.
Because unless you're able to deal with the foundation, as Neema said, those emotions, even if you leave everything and run away, those things are going to be with you.
They are going to be with you.
And it's only, I think,
absolutely
that you deal with a variety of emotions, a variety of conflicts. When you're young, it's much less. When you're old, it's different. But this is the time when you're really dealing with everything.
And like she said, maybe in a later life, you don't need to move on.
Yeah, and then you
don't need to maybe.
Exactly. If you want to.
You want to resolve things.
And then on a practical note, I think, Neema, there is no grahast or grahastin who has, at least, I don't know how many times, wanted to run away from the situation.
You are almost out of the door.
Right? It may not be to take sannyas, but you want to just
run away,
leave that situation and be out of the door. How
many times?
Each person, nobody can honestly say everything is perfect.
So I think that's what she said. The reason you leave, your intention is very important. To go for pursuit of knowledge, and that's actually better for you to be away, and you feel that it will get you closer to this, then it's good.
Because you have to do escaping.
That is true.
Exactly, escapism.
But exactly what I'm
actually
saying,
into the pursuit.
that if you're unprocessed, you would want to leave the situation and go for some other artha kama. Right? Or dharma. But if you're processed, then you either may leave for moksha or you stay here and
process.
Exactly.
Because unless you resolve issues within yourself, because even when you become a sannyasi and go away, there will be external situations.
Exactly. See, this is where, one thing we get into.
The weather, the people you interact with, is not.
they still need food. They still need money.
They still.
So our teacher used to say that if you're just this irritable person, then even in Himalayas, something exactly, that where the little mosquito is flying and you'll be irritated, right? So that means that you have to deal with that. You can't just run away, So he used to say,
I'll close it.
No,
Put the fan on.
No.
Yeah, you can put the fan.
I'm okay with it. Long as it's
yeah, please do, but not my fan on.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
Thanks, Niku. Sorry.
He said, our teacher used to say that if you think that the world is too much for you and you want to run away, no, you have to stay there and make it a non-problem. Once you've made it a non-problem, you are free. Either you can stay there or you can go out. But you have to make it, you have to wait first.
That's wonderful.
So monks had the same thing. The philosophy of monks in the Western world is the same thing.
So monks, I think those Christian monks?
Yeah. So it's the same philosophy to get away and in pursuit of knowledge, whatever it is. So there will be the
What
same.
is that knowledge?
Even the Jains, with the Jain monks. So the whole thing is actually just, when they go to the caves and they were going, it was the same philosophy.
It's the same thing that
It's the how
church in the
prepare
valley.
you are
What
inside.
all is going on?
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, the monks.
The pedophile. Yeah.
What all is going on there? Everywhere, if you are not processed, something will happen.
Something.
So it is nothing to do with Christianity or
No, I think
Buddhism.
even there, the thinking of the monks when they had that thing, and nuns, must be in pursuit
That could
of
have been an escape also, That's why they behaved like that.
They are there sannyasis.
Yeah.
Nuns are there
Yeah.
sannyasis.
absolutely.
But in the Irish culture, the old time,
Yeah.
the first child was given up to
Yeah,
the church.
yeah.
Where are they processed?
Exactly.
You've given up like a baby to the church.
And then
Where
all
is the
kinds
child
of things
processed?
happen, no?
Yeah,
So when
all
they
kinds
grow
of
up,
things
then everything happens. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
all the unprocessed.
Unprocessed, exactly. So that's why it's very important. What Lord Krishna emphasizes is that processing is the foundation to build this new vision. If you don't do it, there is no way. You'll be flying up in the air, hallucinating.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And then crashing down.
And then crashing down, because it's just kind of a card. What did you say? Pack of cards.
It's a house
Yeah,
of
house of-
completely.
yeah.
That lovely series.
So therefore, now the other thing which comes, so now if you're not ready, what will happen is that when Vedanta says that you are not the body and not the mind, one message you will take is what? I'm going to be indifferent to this body and mind. That is not at all what Vedanta is saying. So how to negate this idea? Negate this idea by this verse by saying, imagine there's an imagery used of chariot. Okay. Now it says it equates chariot to one's physical body. Okay. So now what it says is Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi. Who are you? You are the Rathinam. Rathinam means Ratham Asya Asti Iti Rathinam. You own the chariot. So that means you have come to this world with a given body. You are a trustee of this body. Okay. Now what is the mistake? What I'm trustee of, I start thinking I am. Right? So now it says that you are the owner of the chariot, okay? And what is this Sharira? Sharira is the Ratham. Yeah, Sharira is the body, and that is what the chariot. Body is the chariot. Who are you? The owner of the chariot. You are given this body for length of time to conduct yourself through this body. Okay, and then he says that buddhi tu sarathim vidhi. Okay, now this owner has got this instrument called chariot, which is the body. Now you need somewhat the charioteer to direct. So where is the charioteer with reference to buddhi? The mind. Buddhi is that discriminative capacity that you have, that decision making capacity that you have, which enables you to make what decisions. This is what I want in life and this is how I'm going to get. Okay, so therefore this buddhi is the charioteer. Okay, and now what it says is mana pragraha mevacha. Okay, so now any decision that you make, what is the process through which those decisions are made? Okay, you have a body, and then what happens? You look at the world. So you look at the world with what? What enables you? Senses. You need your senses, right, to first see what is there, what is available. Now, when the senses get the data, where is the first point where it gets gathered? In the mind, right? So that mind is pragraham evacha. Pragraham means it is the reins. The horses are the senses, and those reins are what? Mind. And who is the decision maker? The buddhi. Right? So there is a slight distinction made between the mind and the buddhi. Yeah? So what happens is, initially the senses report. Okay? Based on that reporting, what happens is, number of options are generated. Right? So I say, okay, now I'm in this situation. Now what are the options I have? So then you have, let's say, 3 options, 4 options. And what is this buddhi? Among these options, which one do I choose?
So the charity is the
Buddhi is a decision making capacity. Because there is one aspect of the mind which is what we call sankalpa vikalpatmikaha manaha. Sankalpa vikalpatmikaha manaha means when a situation arises, you create what option? Everybody does. What should I do now?
It's an instant.
It's almost exactly. And then based on, you can't make a decision based on one option which you have not created for yourself. So you only make decisions based on what you see are the options. So cultivating mind and buddhi, what does it entail?
Emotions also come into it.
Emotions also come into it. Everything comes into it.
And what you see, what you allow your senses to observe.
Okay. Senses are reporters. Wonderful. So the senses are just, are able to, if there is a form, I need eyes to see it.
Yeah.
They don't interpret anything.
They don't
interpret anything, they just report. They are just reporters. Right? If the sound is there, your ears, they will hear it, pick it up and report. The senses don't have any say. They are just report. They take the data and they report. That's the job, right? Now, mind is a CPU, the central processing unit. That central processing unit also has different aspects.
So the emotions will tell you whether it likes the sound or not. Because if you go
memory
back
bank
into
will tell
memory,
something else.
this blast reminded me of that.
Wonderful.
And I
You will
feel
make one
something.
whole story out of that.
Whole. So the emotions will go into the CPU and
The-
start processing it.
Right. Or it can, absolutely. Then it will start, and then based on that, you will make the decision.
Your buddhi will come.
Your buddhi will say, okay, now should I go with this story or not?
No.
Still, you have buddhi, you have a capacity, even if you make a story, you still have the capacity to say, hey, I don't need to get, because, I see some fallacy in this story, I see some assumptions which may not be
But
true.
that's how develop your buddhi.
Exactly. So that means you need to cultivate buddhi. You need to cultivate what both I want to include, you need to cultivate your mind as well as your buddhi.
But you know, sometimes your buddhi, you know, but your emotions still dominate.
So, absolutely.
You know this is the right thing to do, but you hate that person, I will do the wrong thing.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Very, that's true. So that's why it requires, this again and again, understanding, because it's true, it will happen.
It will
right?
happen.
It will happen. But then you say, okay,
Some
this
people
time
are
it
aware,
happened.
some are not aware.
Absolutely. The minute you become aware, you said, okay, this time I was carried away, next time I try not to be carried away.
Yeah.
Exactly. So therefore, now there are two aspects of preparing mind and buddhi. Okay. So now, imagine there is a situation, okay, where there is somebody is, let's say, abusive or whatever. Okay. Now you have to create options as to what first. Okay, now this is what is happening, and then I have to choose what to do. Okay, so that means generally people only create two options, either to be passive or hit back. So that means your mind itself is not cultivated, because what happens, where there are other options possible, you don't see, you've ignored that, right? So that means you can say these are two options, but there are also in between these two extremes, there are many other options. This is how you begin to cultivate the mind. Say, yeah, I can do this, but I can do many other things. So this is what we call intelligent interventions, which are possible, which you don't even think about. So when your mind has created these two options, your buddhi will choose from what? One of the two, because you don't see anything else beyond that. But when you cultivate your mind, what do? You create many more options, and then the buddhi can choose from a range of options that are available. So you see, you don't need to only cultivate buddhi, you also need to cultivate the mind, which presents options. You need to.
So your senses and your emotions will go into the mind will filter, the buddhi will filter the mind.
So the buddhi will make decisions. So now mind is one aspect which presents options.
Yeah.
Right? From this presentation of options, one of the options has to be chosen. The buddhi will take this decision making capacity.
And the mind will sort of expand.
Will expand.
Options,
yeah,
absolutely.
So
this is why, absolutely, because otherwise, as Neeru says, it's just instinctive. Yeah, you just say, this either this or this.
Yeah.
So that's a very non-cultivated mind. A cultivated mind means it'll say, these are two which comes to me immediately, but there are many other. That is.
You don't have the time for that.
No, but you cultivate
quick,
that.
Right decision.
Yeah.
Once you're cultivated, which is a time thing, it's not going to happen immediately.
Sure.
But even in that situation where you don't have time,
The clarity comes.
That.
it will kick in.
So that means that when you, and also when you, the more and more you think about it, even if at that time it was not available, you reflect and you can say, I could have done something better. I had other options. I had other, so this is where you cultivate, right? It doesn't just get cultivated. You need to spend time. Okay, so this is what we call the cultivation of mind. Now then sometimes what happens is that when you create too many options,
there's confusion.
So your buddhi, there are so many people who think and think and think and this and this and this.
Should go to Bangalore or not on Monday? Not going mad, I've driven Kuchi mad, or shall I go, not go, shall I go, not go? Because you have too many options. Shall I go, not go? If I go, this will happen. If I don't go, this will happen. I don't want to go, but I should go. Then the emotions come in. Then I'll find a reason not to go. I'm just exhausted.
Exactly. Right? So, so that means, that's the thing, right? There are a lot of people who just there is one little thing and they overanalyze and they'll just talk about and like everything, and then but there is no clarity. When there is no clarity, then what, your decision making is impaired even more.
I think what keeps interfering is your emotions.
So that means, exactly.
You don't want to do it, but you know what is the right thing to do, but you're just you know, that it's
It is.
and then
So
you
that,
get exhausted with that rut.
exactly. You keep repeating and you keep repeating and
Wasting
it's,
energy and time,
exactly.
really.
Right? So that means that along with that expansion of options,
Yeah.
right,
Comes a lot of
comes also this whole thing of what sharpening your decision making capacity, because otherwise it can just confuse you more.
Yeah.
So you also need to work on that, right?
lot of work.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
So this is where actually, yeah, these are very subtle things.
Subtle things, and they are everyday things.
They're everyday things.
Every moment, Radhika, everything, even
Find myself, what am I doing? Just make up your mind, go या नहीं जाओ. छोड़ो, but I'm just giving an example. It's a stupid example.
But it's everything.
It's everything.
It represents everything. How you conduct
Should I go
yourself.
for this silly dinner or not? Should I go to this wedding?
Wonderful. Yes.
Getting an invitation for me is a nuisance. I mean, now which excuse shall I give? Becoming a wedding.
Yeah.
So you know, you just waste so much time. on
Time.
this thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just too much.
I'm sorry, Sneha, I wanted to ask you, you talked about senses, but in this chariot...
And then right now they have not. They have not. But I think maybe in the next verse it says Indriyani Hayan. The next verse it says Indriyani Hayanahuhu. The next verse, Rashna. In this one,
So sorry,
yeah. So
Yeah, it's the next verse.
it's the next verse.
Together,
Actually, these two verses go together.
together.
Okay. So now
It's a beautiful verse.
it's a beautiful verse.
Beautiful verse.
Right? So it's not like I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, and then you just are floating in some awareness and all. You need to cultivate all of this.
It's a beautiful analogy.
It's a beautiful
because
analogy.
Beautiful
if you don't look after the chariot, one wheel is not working.
Yeah.
Where are you going to go?
Exactly. So you need your body, you need your mind, and you don't only just need your mind, you need a cultivated, refined mind, a buddhi. Now the second thing which happens at the mind is what Radhika is talking about, which is a huge thing, right? Emotions.
Yeah.
Huge. It's not just presenting options, it is what also along with these options come what? They are loaded with your emotions. They are not just like 1, 2, 3, 4. We are not robotic. Okay, there are emotions. So now, what do you do with those emotions? So there also, as I said, right, the first step in dealing with emotion is what? Acknowledging their presence. Not try to deny them, because they are there.
Yeah.
You can't just ignore and pretend as though they are not there. Then you get into a huge problem. In psychological terms, they call it dissociation. People use Vedanta to get into this dissociation. Many of the people who come to Vedanta and let's say something happened to them which they cannot handle, so then they keep on, instead of addressing the pain that is attached to that, they just say, oh, I'm the whole, I'm awareness, awareness is the whole. What will happen? It will not work. Okay, so that means there is this emotional being that we have which cannot be just ignored. We have to acknowledge it. Okay, but once you acknowledge the presence of emotion, can you afford to be drowned by that emotion? No. So where is the balance of expressing the emotions, letting them go, and at the same time not just emotions take over in that whole faculty of what? Decision making, options. You can't just only one thing dictate the whole thing. Emotions have a place. Don't think that they don't have a place, but they are what? If they become the only factor guiding the whole faculty, then they are displaced. Ignoring is as much of a displacement. Not, you need to give emotions a right place.
They're passing. You can say the emotions are passing.
They are passing.
Not permanent.
They are not permanent, but that's one way of looking at it, Rashna. The second way is sometimes to say that in order for this emotion, right, to be there, maybe there is some distortion in my thinking, right? let's say somebody else's beauty creates that sense of jealousy in me. So that means there is something wrong in my thought processes which creates this feeling. So I need to first acknowledge that, hey, I'm feeling jealous, instead of thinking, oh, good people don't feel like that, so I shouldn't be, right? That shut that thing which is there, right? Then I have to say, okay, now what exactly am I interested in? Why am I jealous? Question yourself a little bit more. Why am I jealous with reference to this person? You are jealous because actually we want to be like that, right? If somebody is beautiful and it makes you feel jealous, that means what? You want to be beautiful, and you feel that somebody else is more beautiful, or somebody else is better figure, or somebody has more money or more intelligence, whatever you value. If you don't care for looks, beauty queen will be standing in front of you and it will evoke nothing. But if you value intelligence and you see, hey, somebody is really so articulate and can speak so well and so confidently, that will create jealousy. So jealousy is only with reference to what you value. What you value, it's not only what you value, but you see it as you not having it and somebody else has more of it. That is the cause of jealousy. Now, if you stay with this emotion and say, okay, now this is the situation, I want it. Okay, now my being jealous towards that person, is it going to increase my chance of getting it? How is it going to serve me? Does it really serve me? Not at all. Because the minute I have jealousy, it makes me feel small. There is a compensation that we do. What is a compensation? When I see somebody high and I feel low, then I need to do what?
Pull that person
pull that person down. So I need to criticize, I need to say something mean, I need to say this is nothing. So that means what do? I need to bring that person down so that I feel what?
The same level.
The same level. This is the whole distortion.
So beautifully put.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay. So now, what is my interest? My interest is to what? Rise from here to here. By bringing the person down, what am I achieving? Nothing. Only creating distortions. And in fact, the result of this whole act of saying bad things about somebody, it will all come back to me. I'm actually bringing from here to here.
Yeah.
So if I want to move here, what do I need to do? I just need to work on myself, and even if I can never reach here, and I can just go up. But where is the energy? The energy is not invested in bringing somebody down, but the energy is invested in what? Pulling yourself up.
So is that an act of competition? No, it should not be.
So that is no. So that means you do, in spite of your doing, you may never reach that level, right? But so what? At least where is your energy? In growing. In growing, and then you understand that every person has many different aspects. In this aspect, the person may be higher. In other aspects, you are higher. So it's not like this person, because here the person is higher than you. Everybody is multifaceted. In one thing, somebody else is better. In something else, you are better. It's not a matter of comparison. It's not a matter of competition. It's just your progress. Okay? And the minute, in fact, the other very nice way of getting rid of this jealousy is not only work on yourself and improving yourself, but when you really, what is your real thing with reference to that person? There is a distortion which is envy, but there is a real thing which is appreciation, because you do see that person as higher. So you have to reinforce that, and you have to go and compliment that person, because that's your real feeling. So you have to say, and genuinely say, this is beautiful, you're beautiful, or you are wearing nice clothes, or you're intelligent. It doesn't make you small. You have to start acting differently from your understanding. If you just say it's a passing, envy is passing, it will continue to hold you. It's not just one technique of sometimes passing through, sometimes you need to deal with it. You need to see what are your implicit assumptions, right? And that you need to correct them very, very attentively and see what is going on and where are the interventions required. There are other ranges of emotions where certain things happen to you. A child, right, was abused, as I gave this example, right, of this person who had come to our course. Remember, I told you he was just absolutely brilliant, okay? And while he was studying so much, and he was, I think, like really almost in the category of genius, his emotions were all because he was adopted child and he was abused, and so there was this whole upheaval that he was facing, okay? That does not fall in, you can't just let it be as passing emotion. You can't also say that there is some distortion because it's a fact. You can't just say, oh, this is my creation. It's not a creation, these are traumatic events and they will produce certain emotions. You can't just foo-foo it and say, oh yeah, I have to be thankful, and nothing of that sort can work. So in that case, what will you do? Because there are some legitimate reasons, not just random your own creation and your own distortion. In that legitimate reasons, what will you do? The only thing you can do is what?
And heal, right?
Exactly. Heal it with prayers and understand that larger order. The larger order, because there are so many factors within factors within factors within factors that it's unfathomable. Trying to understand that event is unfathomable. You can't. Then you ask for help through prayers. Just, slowly. It's not going to happen overnight either. That man, he had to work a few years. Now he's fine. It's not like the first day he did prayer, then everything. No, it takes time. That healing is required. But healing is required when you understand that overall, what is your basic assumption about life? Is life unfair? Is life random? Is life fair? So there Vedanta helps you to say that there are laws and laws and laws and laws that govern our life. Okay? And certain things happen, we don't understand why, but we have to have that confidence and use our free will to move on. We can't be stuck by those events, because that's how. Who is the hero? Is there any hero who has no challenges? There is no hero. Imagine you go and see a movie where the hero, everything the hero wants, everything just exactly that happens. You will get bored watching that movie. Hero is who will have lots of challenges and is able to overcome challenges. He's not totally weighed by those challenges. Lord Krishna's life is the same. How many challenges? Born where? In the jail. Growing up with where? Not his real parents, some other, his own uncle wanted to kill him. There's a traumatic life, right? Events are difficult. Rama 14 years in jail, in the forest. So the external things nobody has everything going their way. There is no human being who has everything going their way. How you deal with those events is what is going to make you who you are. Okay? So therefore, there is some deep healing, and you can say, yeah, there are factors which I may never know, but right now I need to still steer my life and help myself and do what I have to do.
Just like the chariot sees a
This exactly, absolutely, right? So you can't just keep on and then you're in the ditch and then you spend rest of your life there.
So what
that is what we call.
That prayer is very important in the healing process.
Yeah, because the prayer implies what? That there is certain order, right? And within that order, there are some events which will scar you. There is, and you are not like being unreasonable in feeling that. The denial of emotion is a big problem. You think, oh, I'm spiritual means, oh, I have to forgive, I have to let go, I have to be nice to everyone. That doesn't happen. There are people have behaved like this, and I have very legitimately felt like that. But what will I gain by just holding on to that story and keep on playing that story for the rest of my life, which will distort everything else that I have to do from now on? But you acknowledge that your emotions are also in order. The events are in order and your emotions are also in order. There is an acceptance, self-acceptance. But then you can't remain there, so ask for help for moving forward. That is prayer. Okay? So this is what, it's so important to use our buddhi and our mind skillfully. Even though you are not the buddhi and mind, you need to use it skillfully, because that creates a foundation, and the whole new picture is built by what? You need your mind. Where is the old picture demolished? In the mind. The foundations in the mind. The new vision in the mind. So you are not the mind, you are not the mind, it will not get you anywhere. You need to use this mind is the one which is able to figure out this bigger picture. So you need to use it very intelligently. Okay? Mind and the buddhi together. Wonderful. Mind and buddhi go together. Your emotions, your options, your decision, the whole thing go together. The whole thing go together. Okay? So that is the verse. And the next verse, now we are way past. Okay? So the next verse we will see, it's very easy, because who are the horses and what are the objects of the world, that we will see. Do you want to do it? No. Now it's enough. I think it's enough. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.